Pause right here for just a second, before you scroll past this, because what you are about to read did not find you by accident. Something in you was already searching for these exact words before you even knew it. So stay with me for a moment. I want you to bring someone to mind right now. Let their face appear in your thoughts, and then notice what happens inside your chest the moment you do. That soft pull, that warmth that lives underneath all the confusion. That feeling is not weakness. That feeling is not you being foolish. That feeling is your heart already knowing something your mind is still trying to catch up to. Because this person did not simply walk into your life randomly. Something about this connection carries weight. Something about it feels different from anything else you have experienced before. And if you have been wondering why it feels so hard to simply let go, why this particular person stays in your thoughts no matter what you do, stay with me, because what comes next might finally make sense of everything you have been feeling. The connections that reach deepest inside us are never the easiest ones. That is the truth most people do not say out loud. Everyone talks about love like it is supposed to feel like relief from the very beginning, like finally stepping out of cold rain into somewhere warm and quiet. But the connections that actually reshape who you are rarely arrive that way. They arrive like weather. They arrive like something that shakes loose every old habit, every emotional wall, every survival pattern you built over years of being hurt. And at first that shaking feels terrifying. It does not feel like growth. It feels like everything falling apart at the exact same time. But here is what nobody tells you. The falling apart is often the beginning, not the end. The moment someone enters your life and touches the parts of you that nobody else could reach, all your old protections stop working the way they always have. The walls stop holding. The distance stops feeling safe. And that exposure, as uncomfortable as it is often the exact thing that starts the real transformation. Keep reading, because what comes next is the part that changes everything. There are two types of people in these kinds of connections. You probably already know which one you are. The first type gives too much. They extend patience. They absorb pain quietly. They stay when leaving would have been easier, and they spend enormous amounts of energy trying to prove their worth through effort, through sacrifice, through making themselves endlessly available. Deep inside them is a wound that says love must be earned, that closeness requires constant labor, that if they stop trying even for a single moment, everything will disappear. The second type does something different. They pull away, not because they do not care, but because caring became connected to something dangerous somewhere in their past. Their mind learned that closeness leads to pain, that vulnerability leads to loss, that the safest thing to do when something starts feeling too real is to create distance before it can hurt them. So they withdraw. They go quiet. They send mixed signals, not because they are cruel, but because they are caught between what they feel and what they fear. And here is the part that most people miss entirely. Both of these people are responding to the exact same fear, just expressing it in completely opposite directions. One chases, one retreats, but underneath both patterns is the same wound, the belief that they are not quite enough. That love, if it ever truly arrives, will eventually reveal something unacceptable about them. That is the real story happening beneath the surface of these connections. And once you see it clearly, you cannot unsee it. The person who gives too much begins to notice something painful during these kinds of connections. They start realizing just how exhausted they have become, how long they have been abandoning their own needs in order to keep someone else comfortable. They begin to see that they were taught, somewhere along the way, that love was something you had to earn, rather than something you simply deserved by existing. That realization does not come gently. It arrives like something cracking open, because it forces a question they have been avoiding for a very long time. When did they stop believing they were worth loving without working for it? Meanwhile, the person who withdraws is quietly living inside their own storm. They think about this connection more than they let on. In the quiet moments when there are no distractions available, the feelings are there. They are aware of how much they care, But their nervous system treats that level of caring like a warning signal, like something that needs to be managed or escaped before it overwhelms them. Their withdrawal is not indifference, it is fear wearing the mask of indifference. And underneath that mask is someone just as overwhelmed by this connection as you are. They just respond to that overwhelm by moving away, instead of moving closer. Understanding that will not make the pain disappear, but it will stop you from absorbing their struggle as evidence of your own inadequacy. Their fear belongs to them. It says nothing about your worth. Now here is where the real turning point lives. And most people walk right past it because they are looking in the wrong direction. They are watching the other person, waiting for a sign, waiting for a message, waiting for a moment where the confusion finally resolves itself from the outside. But the turning point in connections like this almost never comes from the outside. It comes from a quiet decision made entirely within yourself. The decision to stop waiting to be chosen and to begin genuinely choosing yourself instead. Not as a strategy, not as a performance designed to get a reaction, not as a technique to make someone miss you, though that often happens as a side effect. Simply as a genuine act of returning to yourself. When that shift happens, something in the entire dynamic begins to change, because the energy you bring into a connection is felt by the other person whether you speak it or not. When you stop reaching from a place of need or fear, you stop triggering their instinct to withdraw, you stop being something they feel the pressure to manage, and for the first time they are left alone with what they actually feel about you, not what they fear, not what they have been avoiding, what genuinely exists inside them, and what exists there may have never left at all. Do not skip past what I am about to say, because this part matters more than almost everything else. Nothing you have been through during this period has been wasted, not a single moment. I know there are nights where it feels that way, where you look back at all the love you have given, and wonder if it simply disappeared into empty space, where you wonder if any of it reached anyone at all. But love does not dissolve, it does not vanish. Every quiet evening spent holding these feelings, every night spent falling asleep with unspoken words in your chest, every moment of choosing to remain open when closing yourself off would have been easier. All of it has been shaping you, deepening you, expanding your capacity to hold something truly extraordinary when it finally arrives in a form you can actually receive. The love you have been carrying has not been wasted on someone unworthy of it. It has been teaching you something far more important than whether this particular person will come around. It has been teaching you what you actually want, what you will and will not accept, what it feels like to love without conditions, and those lessons become the foundation of everything that comes after this. There is something remarkable about the kind of person who chooses to remain open through this kind of uncertainty. Most people do not. Most people, after enough pain, begin to go quiet. They start protecting themselves before anyone else can get close enough to hurt them again. They build walls so gradually that they barely notice the construction happening. They tell themselves they are simply being realistic, simply being smart, simply not setting themselves up for disappointment again. And honestly, who could blame them? It makes sense. It is a completely understandable response to pain, but you chose a different path. You stayed gentle when becoming hard would have been simpler. You kept feeling when going numb was available as an option. In a world that rewards emotional distance and treats vulnerability as a liability, choosing to remain open is one of the quietest forms of courage that exists. It is not weakness, it is the opposite. Because to love this deeply without calculating what you will receive in return, to care about someone through silence and confusion and uncertainty without becoming bitter about it, that requires something that cannot be faked or copied. Either you have that capacity, or you do not, and you clearly do. That is not a minor detail about who you are. It may be one of the most defining things about you. So what do you actually do now? Not in the abstract, not someday, right now, tomorrow, in the days ahead. The answer is both simple and genuinely difficult. You turn your attention back toward yourself, and this time you do it for real. Not as a move in some game, not as a way to send a message, You genuinely begin bringing your energy back home to yourself. You start asking a question you may not have asked honestly in a very long time. What do I actually need right now? Not what do they need. Not what can I do to make them stay. Not what would finally make them understand. What do you need? What would feel genuinely nourishing to you today? What parts of your own life have been patiently waiting while your attention has been fixed on something just slightly out of reach? Because the truth is that somewhere along the way, your world may have quietly shrunk. Your dreams got set aside. Certain friendships drifted. Experiences you wanted to have got postponed. Because your emotional energy was all directed somewhere else. And that is the thing that needs to change. Not because you should stop caring about this person, but because your life is larger than any single story. Your worth is not contained within any single outcome. When you genuinely begin doing this, something subtle shifts. It does not happen dramatically. It does not happen overnight. Most people do not even notice it at first. But it is real. You stop feeling like an incomplete sentence waiting for someone else to finish it. You stop feeling like your life is on pause inside a permanent waiting room. You stop believing that everything meaningful must hold still until one situation resolves itself. Instead, you begin to feel like someone whose life has movement in it again. Purpose, color, meaning that does not depend on one person's next decision. You start feeling settled inside yourself, instead of emotionally hanging from someone else's uncertainty. And that groundedness changes everything about how you show up. People around you feel it even if they cannot explain it. There is something unmistakable about a person who is genuinely at home within themselves. A quiet confidence that cannot be manufactured. A calm strength that does not require anyone else's validation to exist. Real presence does not chase, it attracts. And the person you have been caring about will feel that difference more than anyone else will. Not because it is a technique, because it is simply what happens when you stop relating from a place of emptiness and begin relating from a place of genuine fullness. Here is something else worth understanding. The person you have been loving through all of this is not the villain in your story. I know there may have been moments when the hurt made it tempting to see them that way. When the silence or the inconsistency or the distance made it easier to frame the story as someone being clearly right and someone being clearly wrong. But people are almost never that simple. What has looked like coldness or indifference from the outside is usually something far more complicated on the inside. Many people learned long before they ever met you that closeness was dangerous, that love eventually costs more than it gives, that being fully seen by someone means giving them the power to disappoint you in ways that cannot be easily recovered from. They did not choose that belief. Nobody chooses their wounds. Those beliefs get woven into a person through experiences that happen before they even have the language to describe what is occurring. And those old protective patterns do not disappear just because someone new arrives, who seems different. The nervous system does not update that quickly. So what looks like withdrawal is often someone trying to manage a fear that has been running quietly in the background for years. Their struggle is real, it just belongs to them. And you cannot carry it for them no matter how much you want to help. What you can do is refuse to let their fear become the measure of your worth. Refuse to absorb their unresolved wounds as evidence that something is wrong with you. Their journey toward healing belongs entirely to them. The most powerful thing available to you is to carry yourself with such steady self-respect and such genuine wholeness that when they finally move through whatever has been holding them back, what they find on the other side is you at your best. Not someone diminished by waiting, not someone emptied out by longing, not someone still searching for the validation they should have been giving themselves all along. Someone standing firmly in their own light, complete, grounded, and genuinely ready for something real. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a morning that may be closer than it currently seems. You wake up and the first thing you notice is that the weight is gone. That specific heaviness that has lived somewhere in your chest for so long you almost forgot it was there. That familiar pressure beneath the surface. It is simply gone. Not because your feelings disappeared, Not because you forced yourself into some kind of emotional distance, not because you convinced yourself not to care anymore. The weight is gone because the love finally has somewhere real to belong. Because what was once unresolved has found resolution. Because what always seemed to exist somewhere in the future has finally simply arrived. It is no longer something you are reaching for. It is just part of your life now. Imagine looking at this person and really seeing their face, and noticing something there that was not present before, or something that was absent for a long time that has finally returned. You do not see conflict hiding behind their eyes. You do not see someone managing their feelings or keeping part of themselves in reserve. You see peace, a quiet, settled peace that belongs to someone who has made a complete choice and is no longer questioning it. Someone who is fully there, not visiting, not testing, just there. Imagine a love that no longer visits you at 2 in the morning as a source of anxiety. A love that does not keep you awake running conversations back through your mind, searching for what you missed. Imagine your nervous system finally getting permission to rest inside a relationship. No more reading signals, no more preparing yourself for the next wave of uncertainty, no more quietly wondering if you are enough, not because you spent years convincing someone of your value, but because you are sharing your life with someone who never questioned your value in the first place. Someone who sees every layer of you, the parts you are proud of and the parts you are still figuring out, the confident version and the complicated version, all of it, and they choose all of it, not despite those parts, because of them. That is not a fantasy created to comfort you through difficult days. That is the natural destination of 2 people who each did the hard work of healing. 2 people who stopped showing up carrying old wounds and expecting the other person to fix everything life had broken. 2 people who took genuine responsibility for their own growth and met each other in a place where something real could finally exist between them. That is what is quietly being built right now, inside the uncertainty, inside the waiting, inside the moments that feel confusing, and the stretches of time where progress seems completely invisible. Every single day you choose to care for yourself instead of dissolving into fear. You are placing another piece into the foundation of something that actually lasts. Every time you choose steadiness over panic, self-respect over self-abandonment, growth over obsession, you strengthen that foundation. Do not let the difficulty of this middle chapter convince you that the destination does not exist. The middle is always the hardest part. It is the stage where nothing feels certain, where the end cannot be clearly seen, where doubt becomes loudest. But the difficulty of the middle is not evidence that you are on the wrong path. Sometimes it is the clearest evidence that you are on exactly the right one. Keep going, keep becoming, keep choosing yourself every single day, because the moment you truly do that, everything begins to look different. And sometimes, when you finally stop chasing what you fear losing, you discover that what was always meant for you has been quietly finding its way toward you all along. And maybe that is the lesson hidden inside all of this. Maybe the purpose of this connection was never only about reaching a specific ending. Maybe it was also about discovering the person you were always capable of becoming. Because sometimes the most powerful connections do not just bring another person into your life. They bring you back to yourself. They reveal the parts of you that were waiting to be acknowledged. They show you where you still need healing, where you still need patience, and where you still need to believe in your own value. And that realization can become the greatest gift hidden inside the entire experience. There will be moments when doubt returns, moments when your mind tries to replay old memories and search for answers again, moments when you wonder if things could have been different, if you could have said something else, if one small change could have created another outcome. But remember this, you are not meant to live forever inside questions that have no answers yet. You are meant to continue living, growing, creating, and becoming. The story of your life does not stop in the middle of one chapter. There are still pages ahead that you have not even seen. The person who is truly meant to meet you where you are will not require you to shrink yourself to make the connection work. They will not need you to become less emotional, less caring, less passionate, or less yourself. The right connection does not ask you to disappear. It gives you space to exist fully. It creates a place where both people can show up honestly, without constantly wondering if they are too much or not enough. And that is the kind of connection worth waiting for. Not the one that keeps you trapped in fear. Not the one that forces you to constantly prove your value, but the one where peace becomes normal, where communication becomes natural, where love feels like a place you can finally rest, instead of a place where you are always fighting to stay. So if you are currently standing in the middle of uncertainty, remember that this moment is not empty. Something is still happening. You are changing. You are learning. You are becoming someone who can hold a deeper kind of love, because you are building a deeper relationship with yourself first. Maybe one day you will look back at this exact moment and realize why everything happened the way it did. Maybe you will understand why certain doors closed, why certain conversations never happened, and why some things had to remain unclear for a while. Not because you were being punished, not because the connection meant nothing, but because sometimes life has to reshape us before we can fully receive what we have been hoping for. And until that day arrives, continue choosing yourself. Continue protecting the softness inside you. Continue becoming the person who does not need to chase love, because they have already learned how to carry it within themselves. Because the most beautiful thing about finding something real is this: you do not lose yourself in it. You finally find yourself through it. And when you finally reach that place within yourself, something changes that cannot be undone. You begin to understand that love was never supposed to feel like a constant test of your patience. It was never meant to be a place where you are always proving, waiting, or wondering if you matter. Love at its healthiest does not make you question your existence. It reminds you of your value. It adds to your life instead of becoming the only thing your life revolves around. You begin to notice the small things again, the beauty of ordinary moments, the conversations you have with people around you, the goals you once forgot about, the dreams that were quietly waiting for your attention. You realize that your heart can hold love for someone while still making space for yourself. Those two things were never meant to compete. And maybe that is the biggest transformation of all. You stop seeing your own happiness as something that must arrive after someone else makes a decision. You stop placing your peace in the hands of another person. You start understanding that your life is happening right now, not someday in the future when everything finally becomes clear. The connection may have awakened something inside you, but your growth is what keeps that something alive. The person you become through this journey is the part that stays with you forever. The patience, the self-respect, the emotional strength and the understanding you gain become part of who you are. So keep moving forward with an open heart, but also with grounded feet. Allow yourself to hope, but do not forget to live. Allow yourself to care, but do not forget to care for yourself too. Because the deepest kind of love is not found when someone finally completes you. It is found when two people who have already learned how to stand on their own choose to walk beside each other. And that kind of connection is not built through fear, chasing, or uncertainty. It is built through two people who are ready, honest, and willing to meet each other with the same depth they have always been searching for.